Hey there, this is Christoph Atlas from AnonymousBitcoinBook.com and the World Crypto Network. And I wanted to pose a few questions to the Darkcoin developers or anyone else who's been following the Darkcoin technology. So they just released a white paper a couple days ago talking about some features of the coin, and I just did a quick read through and I wanted to pose a couple questions to anyone that has some thoughts about it. So first of all, if you haven't heard of Darkcoin, what is it? Darkcoin is a very exciting new altcoin, and the main purpose of Darkcoin is to improve on Bitcoin's privacy and to more directly integrate privacy protecting technologies into their cryptocurrency. So the main thing that they're doing for privacy is they have an algorithm for mixing coins that's incorporated directly into their cryptocurrency, and they call it DarkSend. And they just put this white paper a couple days ago explaining how DarkSend works. So I have two questions for the Darkcoin team or anyone else that's been tracking the currency. One is an economic question, and the other one is about the privacy technology. So first of all, I would like to hear from the Darkcoin team, what is their economic background? The reason why I ask that is because Darkcoin is choosing to diverge from Bitcoin, economically speaking, in an important way, and that is that they're not planning to have their currency have a fixed supply. In order to address some of the issues of the abrupt halving of rewards and difficulty changes for miners, they're trying to smooth things out, and their solution to that is to slowly decrease the rewards that are coming out of Darkcoin mining, and slowly increase the difficulty. And it will get to a point over a number of years where they will sort of level out, and they will be pumping out approximately 1 million Darkcoins per year, at which point it would become a cryptocurrency with it will remain an inflated supply currency. Whereas Bitcoin over time is eventually going to get to the point where it's producing fewer and fewer Bitcoins every year, and then eventually it will just be basically zero Bitcoins being produced every year. It'll become deflationary because some coins will be accidentally or purposely destroyed over time. So I want to hear about the economic background of the Darkcoin team and what their take is on this sort of Austrian economics perspective, having a preference for currencies with a fixed supply. I guess, I guess to add a little bit of nuance to that, the Austrian School of Economics often has favored a gold standard, and gold is not exactly a fixed supply because you can still mine gold over time. It's just sort of a limited supply, and it gets harder and harder to mine it over time as the supply near the surface of the earth sort of dwindles, and it gets more and more expensive to kind of dig deeper and get to that harder to reach gold. So I don't want to imply that a currency with a non-fixed supply is necessarily doomed, but it is a divergence for Bitcoin that I think deserves some economic defense if you're going to take that route. Now, the second question that I want to ask to the Darkcoin team is about some of their privacy features. A little while ago, I wrote an article which was published on letstalkbitcoin.com about discussing a taxonomy of different Bitcoin mixers and how Bitcoin mixing technology has progressed over time. And sort of the new generation of mixers is it's solving some issues with the first generation of mixers. So just briefly, the first generation of mixers, they were centralized services like Bitcoin Fog, Blockchain.info's original mixer, Bitcoin Launder, lots of other services. You would send them some Bitcoins, they would do some off-blockchain accounting, and then send you back some new Bitcoins at a new address. And the problem with that is that they could either steal your coins, or someone could hack them and take the coins themselves. So there's a stealing problem or a risk of theft there. And there's also a risk that they would retain some records mapping the input address that you're sending coins from to the mixer, mapping that to the output address where you're receiving coins from the mixer. So just briefly, I guess the stealing aspect of things is often referred to as trustful versus trustless mixing, and the record-keeping aspect of things, if you don't keep records, then it's called blind mixing, because the mixer doesn't even know the mapping between your input and output address. We'll get to that in a moment. So the way that the next generation mixers works is that you have a bunch of cryptocurrency users that all get together at the same time and place on the internet, and they're mixing their coins with each other, and they have some entity that's sort of orchestrating a single transaction, taking a bunch of different people's inputs and mapping those to the appropriate outputs. Now, something that they didn't really talk about in the DarkSend white paper is who exactly needs to know the mapping between that input and output address. If it is, so the worst case scenario is that all of the participants need to know this mapping. In that case, you're kind of telling everyone that you're doing this mixing with, you have to give them this mapping, and that lets a lot of people know about your mixing activities, giving them details about it. Now, so that's the worst case scenario. I'd like to know if that's the case. What I suspect is the case instead is they have this kind of hierarchy in Darkcoin where one of the participants gets randomly elected to become the master participant in the DarkSend, which is really neat. So I suspect that it's just the master that needs to know the mapping between the input and output addresses. That still is sort of a weak link in the chain where at least one person or entity does need to know about this input and output mapping. It's some trust that you need to put into one of the participants in this DarkSend operation. So I'd like to know from people who have taken a look at this if that's the case. I'd also like to know if they have plans to remedy that situation by incorporating blind signing algorithms into it, where the master node is blindly signing parts of the transaction in a way that they don't need to know the input and output address. And this is important because if you are some bad actor like the NSA or the mafia who's looking to de-anonymize Darkcoin users so that you can, give them the rubber hose cryptography treatment to steal their coins, or if you're some terrible dictator that's looking for people blogging negatively about your regime so you can, punish them, what you would probably do is you would just have a script that just sends Darkcoins over and over again through the DarkSend operation, and you would do it as much as possible so you can become the master node of as many of these DarkSends as possible, and that gives you an opportunity to log people's input and output mappings and de-anonymize their mixing. And I think that if you launch this on a large scale, as many nation states are capable of doing, or organized criminals are capable of doing, you can gather quite a lot of information about a system that aspires to be as anonymous as possible. So I'd like to hear some answers about those two concerns. Please reach out to me on Twitter. You can leave some comments in the Facebook post, or email me, or whichever method you prefer to get back to me. Thanks so much.